avoid any untoward incidents. Meta India head Arun Srinivas, along with several Facebook and Instagram accounts, booked for posts targeting Prime Minister Modi during CJP protests in Delhi. Former AAP councillor Tahir Hussain sentenced to life imprisonment for IB officer Ankit Sharma's murder during 2020 Delhi riots. 4 other convicts also get life term. Bangladeshi author Taslima Nasreen returns to Kolkata after 19 years. Says return feels like coming back to my own country. The first story that we are looking at. Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Verghese Abraham. Today we have 2 On Points lined up for you. In On Point 1, we examine the 2 narratives surrounding the July 20 Jantar Mantar protests. While students allege they were subjected to excessive force during a peaceful demonstration against paper leaks, the families of injured Delhi police personnel say their loved ones were attacked while trying to maintain law and order. In On Point 2, we examine the Kaveri water row. Karnataka witnessing protests against releasing water to Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu is preparing to move to the Supreme Court to secure its share of Kaveri waters. Let's now take a look at the top stories of the hour. Vijay's farewell film Jananayagan stops across Karnataka over Kaveri water dispute. Theatres are cancelling shows, removing posters to avoid any untoward incidents. Meta India head Arun Srinivas, along with several Facebook and Instagram accounts, booked for posts targeting Prime Minister Modi during CJP protests in Delhi. Former AAP councillor Tahir Hussain sentenced to life imprisonment for IB officer Ankit Sharma's murder during 2020 Delhi riots. 4 other convicts also get life term. Bangladeshi author Taslima Nasreen returns to Kolkata after 19 years. Says return feels like coming back to my own country. The first story that we are looking at. The Jantar Mantar protest over the exam paper leak has now turned into a clash of 2 narratives. For days, the country has heard the voices of students who claim they were lathi-charged while demanding accountability over repeated paper leaks. They say a peaceful protest was met with excessive force and that innocent students paid the price for the actions of a few. But today, another side is demanding to be heard. The families of Delhi police personnel who were deployed at Jantar Mantar have now come forward with their own accounts of what happened that day. They say their husbands, fathers and sons were not aggressors. They were officers performing their duty. They claim several policemen were attacked by an aggressive mob with stones, flower pots, slippers and other objects after violent elements infiltrated the protests. Some officers reportedly suffered serious head injuries. Helmets were shattered, uniforms were soaked in blood. Several policemen were rushed to hospitals where they received stitches and emergency treatment. One police officer's son says his father, a sub-inspector, was pulled into a mob, allegedly beaten unconscious, and returned home hours later with blood-soaked uniform and 4 stitches on his head. Another family says an officer's helmet was smashed during the violence and believes it may have saved his life. What hurts these families even more is what they are saying is watching police personnel being portrayed as villains on social media. Now, despite the injuries they suffered while trying to control the situation.
My father was at a main protest site. He was at the front line near the barricades, जहाँ पर बहुत सारा क्राउड था. मेरे पापा जब भी रात में घर आते थे तो वो बोलते थे कि अब ये प्रोटेस्ट स्टूडेंट प्रोटेस्ट नहीं लग रहा है, इसमें बहुत सारे एंटी सोशल एलिमेंट्स जुड़ चुके हैं. उसके अगले दिन ही 25 तारीख को माय फादर वाज पुल्ड बाय अ क्राउडी मॉब एंड ही वाज ऑलमोस्ट लिंच्ड नियर द स्टेज ऑफ जंतर मंतर।
शाम को 7 बजे जब मैंने उनका फोन मिलाया और उनसे बात हुई तो वो एक हॉस्पिटल LNJP हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट थे और अपना ट्रीटमेंट करा रहे थे। उन्होंने कहा कि जो भीड़ है वो ज्यादा उग्र हो गई थी और भीड़ के अंदर कुछ शरारती तत्व भी शामिल हो गए थे जिन्होंने पुलिस फोर्स पर गमलों से, जो भी उनके हाथ में चीजें आ रही थी, चप्पलों से, जूतों से और पत्थरों से उन्हें पुलिस फोर्स को घायल कर दिया था।
जब मैंने फोटो देखी तो उनके हेड को शेव कर रखा था और उनके हेड पे लाइक स्टिचेस लग रहे थे 4। उसको देख के आई वाज लाइक रियली फ्रस्ट्रेटेड एंड मैं बहुत डरा हुआ था। जब मेरे पापा घर आए तो उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि जो स्टूडेंट्स की जो प्रोटेस्ट है उसमें स्टूडेंट्स नहीं है, उसमें राउडीज है, उसमें एग्रेसर्स हैं जो लाइक इस अपॉर्चुनिटी का यूज कर रहे हैं जस्ट टू क्रिएट केओस।
आप जो अगर मॉब फ्रेंजी हो गई, आप प्रोजेक्टाइल इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, आप डंडे इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, आप पत्थर इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, तो उसके बाद आपने बैरिकेड्स तोड़ दिए, आपने 163 की वार्निंग को कुछ नहीं समझा, आपको बोला कि मजमा खिलाफ कानून आपका डिक्लेयर कर दिया गया है, उसके बावजूद भी आपने ये किया, तो फिर पुलिस के पास क्या साधन है? या तो पार्लियामेंट में उनको घुसने देते, तो इससे ज्यादा बड़ी घटना घटती।
Now, at the same time, the students continue to insist that their protest was born out of genuine anger over exam paper leaks and a collapsing recruitment system. They argue that the actions of a violent few should not define an entire movement, and they continue to question whether the police response was proportionate. So, what really happened on July 20th? Was a peaceful protest hijacked by violent elements? Did the police face an organized assault while enforcing the law? Or did the use of force against protesters make a bad situation even worse? Now, to discuss more on this, I'm joined in by Sanjay Sahai, former ADGP Karnataka, K. Gopika Babu, Gen Z protester, Savio Roderick, senior journalist and editor, Goa Chronicle, advocate Nikhil Jain, who's also a political analyst. Now, let me in fact come first to Sanjay Sahai, former ADGP Karnataka. Sanjay Sahai, how do you in fact see this particular aspect of the family members coming from the policeman's side and telling them this is what our fathers, our sons and our husbands in fact suffered when the Gen Z protest happened? Now, over here, I do not condone the violence that's happening over there. There is a protest that happened. There are elements who have in fact been part of that protest. But the policeman's say is always not there mostly. This is probably for the first time you see the policemen's families coming out and telling this is what we have suffered. But this is also part of occupational hazard. Was it right to bring the families to actually tell what happened to them? Because this is for the first time that you actually see families being brought and told that this is what happened to us. Why is there a battle of narrative?
Why has this been made into a battle of narratives? I cannot understand. And whether the government is interested in proving that it is good and it did everything right on the social media and in the public perception. The government is completely well within its rights to take action as it is warranted. And in self-defense, you are permitted to do as per the law whatever is required. Now, there are a couple of things. One is that there was a complete intelligence failure with regards to the mobilization which was happening. From first day till whichever 22nd or 23rd day when Sansad Chalo happened, actually there was no effort made from the side of the government to get into a dialogue and sort it out. Third is when Sonnam Wangchuk was taken away. I don't think anybody who is at a protesting site with 20 days of indefinite strike is picked up by police and taken for medical treatment. The doctors can take him for medical treatment depending on the other people who are available there with consent. Because medical treatment is required and nobody can deny that, and police could have provided the security. So that is absolutely fine. Now the police personnel, their wives, their children coming in that and saying that this was the narrative, which primarily means that Government is not taking any action. Why they came? It is narrative to narrative that has to be sorted out by the government. So there is a narrative which the protesters or cockroach Janata Party is doing. It is the job of the government and not even the government, more so of the political party to quash that narrative. The job of the government is also not to quash the narrative. The job of the government is to do what is legally to be done with taking all due precaution. Now, any protest, it is not something generic in nature as we see. Now, in that particular protest, and you take the 20th July also, it finally comprises of some 12 to 14 cases. Now, 12 to 14 cases, you will be having accused, name of the accused, you will be having evidence, you will be having narratives, you will have medical record. What stops you from completing the investigation of the case and charge sheet those fellows? It is straight, simple and clear. Why we are talking of so many variety of other things that they are into a social media narrative. And if you really get into the social media narrative, let me tell you very, very clearly, however much the present political parties and governments might try, it is next to impossible to beat the narrative of 10, 20, 30,000 people, everybody moving with his own camera, coming with own story. So you have the capability to reach the global audience unfettered. There are no rules or anything which applies to them. And if you try and implement some rules, you might be able to catch 1, 2, 5, 10 of them. So my understanding, and it does not look very nice. This is my personal point of view. I might be completely wrong. To bring in children and wives into this official duty. Okay.
That is the question
And
that I had. In fact, that was the question that I was also trying to. Let me get
so
in.
I'll tell you, it has never happened. It has never happened. And I hope and pray that it doesn't happen again. And police has sufficient powers and the government has sufficient powers, and we are told that it is a strong government as well. So wherever there is a criminal activity, and I am not even against, if I am a student and I end up killing somebody or I end up committing some offense, the law is applicable to me. Nobody can say that law is not applicable to me just because I am a leader, just because I am a student, just I am coming for the right cause. Cause is one part of the story, criminality is other part of the story. But the issue is where everybody is on a back foot, that you put cameras and you never use those cameras. You are using these cameras ex post facto to prove something. So that is where the challenge is. These people, 2,800 people or whatever the number of people, now these people did not appear onto the scene at 11 a.m. on 20th of July. They would have been infiltrating, and one of the victims or police officer who got injured, her daughter or son was saying that he was saying it is a crowd full of antisocial elements. What stopped the Delhi police to pick them up, to get in for preventive detention? They have all the laws, all the rules under their command. And today also, of the 12, 14, whatever number of cases, I still don't know how many people have been arrested.
Right.
And that being as it stands, why did government go in for an agreement without the caveat that we will not be letting off people who have indulged in criminal act? And lastly, if 2,400 people with criminal records are coming there, just because I have a criminal record does not mean that I am committing offense again. You will basically book a case against me if I have committed the offense again. Whatever offense.
Right.
So that is where we stand.
Right. Let me in fact get in Savio Rodrigues, senior journalist and editor of the Goa Chronicle, into this. Savio Rodrigues, how do you in fact see this kind of a narrative where, the police are trying to put out their side of the story as well, because they think that they have been overwhelmingly vilified in a certain way on social media, and therefore let the family explain what has happened to their men in the family who are in the line of duty. But you are in the line of duty. This is something that is there as part of the occupational hazard. And at the same time, why is it that the family members had to be brought in to, in fact, say something like this? Is it because there is a need for it? Because it shouldn't be that only one side of it is in fact heard, but it is a very complicated situation, isn't it? On one side, you have the students speaking about police brutality. On the other side, the police saying that they also have been at the receiving end of what has happened. Why is it that, the online narrative is also important?
And thank you for having me on your show. It's important to understand the complexity of the situation more clearly. Firstly, is the genuine problem, genuine concern that the students who were protesting brought out, along with the students that were there, and it started to gain numbers after Sonam Wangchuk actually got picked up by the police at that point of time and taken to the health center. That is when the crowd started to get a lot more, and that is when the narrative actually started to spin to say that there is some sort of force being used to disrupt that particular protest. Using that as an excuse, you had undoubtedly a lot of antisocial elements that came to the protest. Now, the problem, what happens is, as much as, and my colleague who's a former police personnel will tell you that it gets very difficult in a mob of people to distinguish between who's genuinely good and who's actually the criminal element. And that is why there are certain powers given to the police to behave in a particular manner, which may or may not be right at that point of time. And therefore, they have investigations which are related to it. If there is a certain element of brutality, they need to be investigated and they need to be dealt with in the strictures that are there as far as the laws that are concerned. But the worrying factor is not that. The worrying factor is, you know what, the saddest part is that there are two genuine people. One, the people with the problems, and the people who are supposed to solve the problem, which is the government. Between these two, you've got some elements that have come in and created a huge disruption that has made the students completely angry with the administrators of the law and order at this point of time. And therefore, the police, having no choice to counter that narrative, which is huge and negative on the social media platform, are turning to bringing their family members to say that, you know, we also faced the brutality.
No, that is
came
where
from certain
I'm asking
elements.
this. See, that is where I'm asking, Savivard, that you are in a profession where there is an occupational hazard. You have an official statement coming in from the police. Was it necessary to drag in the families of these police persons into this?
No, I'll tell you why they're doing it. They're doing it because the sensitivity of the issue, just like we would want to be sensitive to what the students went through, and as far as the protest is concerned, as far as the hunger strike was concerned, and as far as the brutality is concerned. Therefore, the family of the police are also trying to create a sort of sensitivity towards the plight that they went through. Now, neither of them are right or wrong. What is important is that this situation has happened. And therefore, unless you have a hardcore investigation on who those 2,873 people with criminal backgrounds are that infiltrated what was otherwise a student protest, we are always going to be shooting in the dark. And therefore, like I said on the program earlier when Nikhil was around, that it is imperative on the government to get down to the bottom of what turned what was a peaceful protest into a violent protest. What led to the police getting about being brutal? Unless there was some aspect of that intelligence failure which happened, or intelligence was there and never acted upon, we don't know. As people, we don't know what really transpired. If you're asking me to accept that the police came there to lathi charge innocent
Savivard, I think your audio has just gone. Well, we will get back to Savio once his audio is in fact carried out. Let me in fact get in Advocate Nikhil Jain, who's also a political analyst. Advocate Nikhil Jain, how do you in fact see this? Because over here, the police has failed on multiple fronts. The protest has been happening for long. They had announced a parliament march on the first day of the monsoon session. And you have the policemen not able to understand that this could in fact go haywire, because it's not like overnight or in moments that people gathered in large crowds. There was something ticking, and the intelligence or the human intelligence factor in the police or its cybersecurity intelligence factor, they did not in fact factor in any of these traffic on the phones or on the online media, and suddenly taken up by surprise. So some failure has happened on the part of the police to anticipate the kind of protest it could lead to, and suddenly with an overwhelming situation, you just had a knee-jerk reaction that led to one event after the other. Is that the case?
Absolutely, Vargas. So I think this entire story is a testament to the absolute abhorrent incompetence of the current leadership of the Delhi police and the current leadership of the Home Ministry. Because let's look at how things have panned out. These students had been, the CJP had been sitting on a protest for several weeks, for about 3 weeks. The amount of crowds that they were getting at Jantar Mantar was in a couple of hundreds, maybe on the best odd day, something like a 2,000 or 3,000. When did this really snowball? It snowballs on the 18th of July 2026, right the day after the Delhi Police Commissioner is changed, when Sonam Wangchuk is picked up in the manner that he is. He's picked up around noon, and by evening and night, the crowds had swelled up. I myself was at Jantar Mantar that day, and I could see that most of the people, and I could talk to most of the people who had come there on that very day. Then on the 20th of July, you had this protest call being given. There was a lot of content flowing around on social media asking people to come in. People were joining in. Now, Delhi police, according to sources, is said to have believed that about 5 to 10,000 protesters would pan out, but it would come out. However, if you look at the drone shots, and you don't even have to look at the drone shots of the morning, you can also look at videos from about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. that early morning that day. You would know that there were over a lakh protesters on the streets of the national capital that day, but yet the Delhi police completely did not know what was happening. Today, 10 days, 1 week after the incident has happened, they have come out to say that we have identified by a special AI, facial recognition techniques, that there were 2,800 people with a criminal record, 120 rape accused, 150 murder accused, and this and that. What was all this intelligence doing on the day when these people were congregating? How were such rape accused, murder accused, and this accused, that accused allowed to even congregate with a batch of students? We all know that most of the protesters were students. We all also know that of course there were some rotten apples who were not students, who were miscreants, and as is the case in every single protest, no protest organizer, no police also can control that every single person in a protest of this size has to be somebody with a clean and spick and clean record. But that's the point of the police. You have the weapons, you have the surveillance systems, you have the mechanisms, you have the SOPs. It's your job to control that, but they were not able to control that. And the way the police treated these protesters on the 20th of July further snowballed all this dissent and anger, not just in Delhi, but across the country. We've all seen videos of policemen pelting stones, of policemen firing pellet guns, in Patna, police gun pointing AK-47s,
So,
policemen beating people with sticks that have nails in them. What did you expect? What did you expect that is going to happen? I'm not justifying any violence on the policemen, but I'm simply saying, do you really expect that 5 policemen are going to break limbs of students, of teenagers, and there would be no reaction from the crowd? Are we living in a utopian world? And now the government is just trying to change the narrative. And lastly, when Rahul Gandhi does a press conference, he has an objective. He says the Home Minister should take accountability and resign. When the CJP does a press conference, they have an objective. They say that the FIRs against students should be taken back. What is the objective of this press conference? I think they should have asked for the resignation of the Home Minister. Boss, you are so incompetent that you could not protect my father or my brother or my husband who serves in the police force. Because of you, my brother is sullied with blood in his uniform. You should resign. But I don't think these people are asking for that. Then why really this press conference? What's the end of it?
all right. Now we have with us also K. Gopika Babu, who is a Gen Z protester. Gopika, I came last to you because, of course, I wanted to take the first aspects of it, then come to the question over here. Because here, when I spoke to some of those Gen Z protesters, they have been saying one thing, that we have a genuine case, and that cannot be debated. Yes, there is a genuine case about it. But then also, one question that's been asked over here is that when there was a reaction from the police, or rather an action from the police, there was some kind of a counteraction that had taken place. Injuries were reported, and that also cannot be denied. Now, there is also the other aspect that there was some kind of infiltration, and a large gathering like this, open gathering like this, you cannot control the kind of crowd that is coming in. That failure accepted. Now, the other question over here is there some kind of a delegitimization that is being looked at when it comes to your protest? Do you feel that is happening?
Since most of the other points have been covered by speakers before me, I would like to majorly stress on two factors. One is the power imbalance when we're talking about protesters, Gen Z protesters on one side, and the whole state machinery with the Home Ministry and the Delhi Police and other rapid action force and other law enforcement agencies on the other side. So when there is violence or incidents of taking law into their own hands, where should the onus lie? Should it lie on 18, 19-year-olds, or should it lie with the police as it should? And my take on the issue is that when the police very consciously are sending out goons or their police officers, I do not know. Because when I was there on the protest, day of protest, 28th Sunset Chalo, the people I was encountering had all of their protective gears, they had their helmet, they had their other pads, but they refused to wear their name tags, and some of them did not have their uniforms. So when we're encountering such people with batons in their hand, is it reasonable to ask a 18, 19-year-old to think that whether this is a police or a law enforcement agency? Or is it some goon who is lathi charging you and your natural bodily response is to then react? And what happened that day was a clear misuse of any sort of police arrangements. When we were there inside Jantar Mantar, it was almost a stage of stampede. Despite that, there were very tall barricades. And what should we do if not break the barricades and move ahead in order to save ourselves from the obvious death that could be caused through a stampede?
Now,
And
Gopika, I have one question over here. See, the march to the parliament is something that was given, or Parliament Chalo was something that was given by the organizers of this protest. It was the first day of the monsoon session. It is well known that when it comes to the parliament, the police are in charge of its security, and there are zones that are kept in place because of the security factor, because it's a high security zone during that time. And you know very well that you wouldn't be able to march towards that particular location. So it was going to be confrontational, wasn't it?
no, there is a method in which you confront. See, it's not like some of us are activists. We have been through many, many marches in our, journeys as student activists. The first thing you do to disperse a crowd is you put water cannons before you do lathi charge. But what happened is the use of pellet guns, which has been verified by records of the Rapid Action Force and the Delhi police themselves. They have used pellet guns, they have used lathi charge, they have used excessive force. All of this without taking necessary action in place. When you try to restrict crowds in different locations and all of a sudden you leave them and you switch off the internet, because of which no leadership is able to give any sort of clear direction to the protesters that this is the way you should take or this is the assembly point that you should take. So where did this miscommunication happen? It is because you refused to open up the internet channels through which the leadership was communicating with the protesters. When that happens, when there is no communication in place, then chaos was bound to unfold, which it did. And your force, your home ministry, was incompetent in doing some sort of crisis management. Now, the next point I want to get is the narrative. Earlier, whatever the Delhi police does, whatever the government does, they had a huge chunk of mainstream media that could whitewash all of their misdoings in front of the citizens of the country. This is the first time where the youth took control of the narrative, be it through the new media, through Instagram, through Twitter, through YouTube, through shorts, through reels. And now the sole purpose, I completely agree with Nikhil Jain. What was the purpose of this press conference if not to build a narrative? There is no end goal in place for this press conference. The press conference is the government and Delhi police trying extremely hard in their failed attempt to take control of the narrative, a narrative that the Gen Z and the youth has in place. We are showing multiple accounts. Multiple accounts, our bodies are carrying those injuries. Tomorrow, if we go on to do a press conference, I don't think it will end in a week, because there are several protesters who can show you marks of lathi charge on our bodies. We don't have to show you video footages. We can show you the pellets that shot through our sky.
Exactly, that is what I was trying to say, that the march was going to be confrontational, and was the police in fact actually prepared for it or not? But let me get in Sanjay Sahai over this particular aspect. Sanjay Sahai, how do you think that the police would, or rather give us the standard operating procedures when the police knows that this is going to get confrontational? There is a series of grade of escalation that is there, that is to be followed. So what was those series of grades of escalation, and when do you actually go for a lathi charge? When you know that it's going to become confrontational, and it was going to be confrontational because the police was giving the security for the parliament and they were marching towards the parliament. So it was well known as going to be confrontational. But if it was going to be confrontational, what was your strategy or your tactical response could have been?
Let's get a few steps back. This whole thing is a part of a political strategy and not a police strategy, and police strategy comes much later.
But the
So the
police are involved in
confrontation,
it. They,
I
whether
will
they
come
like
to
it or
it.
they are
I will,
involved in it.
don't be in a hurry. I will come to it. So this confrontation or this strategy or the desperation which was created starts from 2024. From 2024, we have reached this place. So initially, you have used the same social media to best of your advantage, and you have really reaped very good dividends out of it. Now you come to this particular protest where they started with Chief Justice of India with a very loose tongue talking about youngsters as cockroaches, and from there the whole thing started as a social media phenomena. And nobody believed, and everybody thought that these people are just enjoying social media, they have no responsibility, they don't understand the law, and they can never stand on their own feet, and more so against the might of the government. So that turned out to be false. And when they started the whole protest, it was taken as if some flimsy protest is there, and accordingly the response came from the government. So it was literally nothing till the time Sonam Wangchuk was picked up. Sonam Wangchuk was picked up in not a graded response. He was picked up in the highest grade, 5th grade response, which the government would have decided or Delhi police decided, and they put a curtain and they did all sorts of things to bring the whole youngsters of this country to a precipice. Now 20th this has happened. After 20th also it continued and continued and continued. So why we are talking only about the 20th incident? The mismanagement has been from day one, and mismanagement continues even today. Even the press conference also is an issue where you are trying to put a narrative where nobody is ready to hear. Now you come to the exact part of it. There was change in the Delhi Police Commissioner. Nobody knows for what reason. We have been changed any number of times in our career in public interest. Let the constitution and law of the land, in inverted commas, define what is public interest. What was Mr. Golcha's fault and why he was removed, and then all the actions which followed. Now the second thing is, what was the intelligence? The night before, I think there was one single entry, Gopika Babu will bail me out, one single entry to that area, and where there was a FR camera, or there was a camera. Now these people went in and in. Now, what is the negotiation or what is the discussion which went on between the organizers and the state government apparatus, either directly by them or through the police? What was the layered response? Now the issue is here. We can get into the layered response at a theoretical level. Here we don't see a layered response. And finally, there are 1 lakh people who are stuck up in that area. And let me tell you, with all sense of responsibility, it was not a crowd management. Basically, the crowd had taken over. And then there was some way you were struggling to sort it out that these people don't reach the parliament. That is broadly what has happened. It is not that there is a layered response and then getting kinetic is the last thing.
All right.
And
So basically, you're saying it was
kinetic.
knee-jerk then. It was knee-jerk when the situation
It was knee-jerk
unfolded.
all throughout the place. Otherwise, you picked up all these goons also. Nobody is denying that enough and sufficient force or might be more force than what was required was available. But the point is whether it was with a clear-cut responsibility of crowd management, a layered response, a communication channel, also communicate. Now they're talking about that the protesters were not communicating properly, did not have any wherewithal to communicate. So broadly, this 4-layer, 5-layer response were pellet guns. Now the issue is, now you started hiding the pellet gun. See why things are aggravating today also, because we are not trying to catch the bull by its horns. Now first you say pellet guns were not used, now pellet guns, everything has literally been proven. Layered response happens when in a situation of this nature, the whole thing is handled in a very, very methodical manner and at every single point in time, from the lowest person till the highest person. And one thing I will add, the Delhi Police Commissioner or anybody from the Home Ministry, as in the case of Operation Sindoor and variety of other things we did, there has to be a press conference where you give your final view of the whole thing, or you just state the fact, and then people can take a call. Till today, I don't know the number of arrests. Now we know 2,000 lumpen elements were there. What has been the number of arrests? In last 10 days, how many cases have been charge sheeted?
All right. All right, I in fact get that point. Let me give the last words because we couldn't get Savio. His audio had in fact moved out. Savio, you heard what the other panelists were in fact saying over here. You in fact said it is complex, and I believe it is a very complex situation because there were several factors working in. But when we talk about this infiltration aspect that you had raised, all those people or criminal elements would have come in. They all had different interests. They wouldn't have come with a combined interest into this. They would have come with different interests and different agendas into it. So is it right to say that all of them just congregated and with their different interests when they saw this opportunity that they can use it for themselves?
You see, there's one aspect of looking at the fact that there were people, students who were genuinely grieved over the fiasco that happened over the NEET exam. Then you had the government responding back, solving the problem. You had the re-examination. You had people pass off the NEET exams. Yet the anger continued. So I agree with the fact that it was badly managed right from the onset. But that does not discount the fact that there were certain questionable elements, because I'm not willing to accept that young students will pick up something in their hand and beat the police officers. That's not how our students are made. That's not how they are. I have two daughters who are Gen Zs, and there is nothing in them that will ever get them to react in that manner, which is violent in nature.
Right.
So you have to be prone to violence to behave and have the courage to come and beat a police officer, unless you are really in that stream of violence. So majority of the youth, majority of the genuine people at that protest, I think were also victims, just as the police officers who were injured were also victims. And therefore, the onus is on the government to get to the bottom of where the entire mess happened.
All right.
Because something certainly went wrong. Because I'm not willing to accept at any point of time that the genuine protesters were capable of turning violent.
Yes.
If at all anything turned violent, it was the elements which have not yet been arrested, which is what the former police officer is saying.
Right.
That there should have been some arrest of the people who are responsible for the criminal turn of the protest. Because while even they are marching to the parliament, I don't think any of those kids were capable of taking a stone in their hand and throwing it at a police officer. Our kids are not made that way.
Sorry, Samuel, we have only that much of time over here. But of course, what you raised is there that it's not that the Gen Zs would have in fact gone to become this violent. Something must have happened, and therefore we need to get to the bottom of it because of the narrative war that is going on. Again, there needs to be some clarity on what exactly happened on that day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for in fact giving your viewpoints about how that situation could have unfolded. Well, we slip into a short break now. On the other side, we start with On Point 2's second story, that is the Kaveri water route.
Dear bestie, how can I thank you for those long, tight, it will be alright hugs, for those unladylike laughter sessions, for healing me? How can I thank you? They say the truest friendships cannot be manufactured. They simply unfold naturally. How true that is for us, bestie. Love, the Bestie Collection.